Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, then hello. Guys, this dress has pockets. Hoping everybody's having a great start to their new year. I am absolutely thrilled that this is the video that we are kickstarting the new year off with on my channel. Finally, it is here. The video that I've been anticipating to do and the video that we've all been waiting for. Probably just me. I think I'm the only one that's been waiting for it, to be honest. Today, I'm going to be going into the care and information for this very special lizard right here. This is the emerald tree skink. The anticipation that I've been having for this video has been unreal. I did a poll on Instagram recently as to whether you guys wanted to see a care and information video on the emerald tree skinks or my Chinese cave gecko, and it seems that the majority went to the skinks. Also, my emerald tree skink bioactive vivarium video has been the most watched on my channel, which is awesome! Thank you guys so much. So I just felt that this video was needed. As of right now, I have a colony of 5 emerald tree skinks. I introduced a 5th one in a live Instagram video randomly. I believe I have 1 male and that the rest are female, but I'm not too sure. I'll get into sexing later in the video. I got them just this spring, and unfortunately they are wild caught, but that's because these guys aren't regularly available in the reptile hobby yet. I've already treated them for parasites, which is a good idea to do when you have wild caught animals. In the wild, they're non-threatened and their populations are doing rather well, but over-collecting could always become a problem, so it's best to establish a captive bred population. But captive bred babies should hopefully become more readily available in time, as these guys are starting to raise a lot in popularity. I hope that these guys will breed for me in the new year, as it would be awesome to have captive bred emerald tree skinks so as to avoid collecting wild ones in the future. I know people are gonna ask me where I got my emerald tree skinks, and I know it's gonna sound weird and like I'm trying to keep some kind of secret, but I actually have no idea. I thought that somebody was trying to rehome them online, but I later found out that it was actually a pet store. I'd never heard of it, and nobody that I knew had either. It was a bit far and out of my way, so I had a friend pick them up for me. The store name didn't stick, and I didn't even see the store. The ad obviously doesn't exist anymore, and I got a new phone since then, so I don't have the number anymore either. But I can tell you where I got my 5th skink. I actually got her from where I work. We got them in for the first time at our store, and naturally I had to pick one up. We're hoping to get them in again in the future, but as of right now, we do not have any, but we do have a website, which I'll put somewhere on the screen or in the description box, that you guys can check out, and we update that website pretty regularly. This here is Eve, and she's one of my emerald tree skinks that I managed to tame. To be honest, she just jumped out at me one day and we've just been friends ever since. The others haven't earned my trust yet, but I'm still working on it. They're super interactive, they're beautiful, and they're also a pretty nice size as well. Although they're gaining popularity, information on these guys is still minimal. So I did my very best to try and provide the most accurate information possible, but I still encourage you to do your own research and use at least a minimum of 3 sources possible, but the more the better, of course, and I encourage you to read more. I'm not an expert or anything, guys. This is just my own experience and through talking with other keepers, hoping that this video will help to provide more resources for those interested in keeping this species. Or maybe you just think they're really cool, which they totally are. The sun has been going down as I've been doing this intro. I hate the winter. There's just so little daylight hours and I don't get out of bed till like the afternoon. Anyway, if you like this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see updates on my pets and more videos like this in the future. Alright, so I think that's all I really wanted to say for the intro. So without any further ado, let's get into the care and information for the emerald tree skink.
The emerald tree skink is a very gentle, friendly, active, and intelligent lizard that rarely bites and is easily tamed. They're a widespread species due to being hitchhikers on palm trees and other debris that gets carried away to foreign shores by storms. You can find them throughout eastern Indonesia, ranging from the lush forests of Taiwan, the Philippines, New Guinea, and down south to the Solomon Islands. It seems their coloration will vary within different populations depending on the geographical location. So some are more brown, some are more spotted, and others will even appear more bluish. These guys are diurnal species, meaning that you'll find them most active during the day, and when they're awake, their curious nature is what makes them truly fascinating to watch. They'll interact with one another by chasing each other around, participating in tug-of-war matches over food, and they'll climb and rest on one another as well. I love it when they do this, and it's so adorable and hilarious, and sometimes they'll make a little skink stack. They can live a good 10 plus years in captivity, so be prepared to care for them for around that lifespan. Their tail appears to be semi-prehensile, which seems to help assist them in arboreal activities. Even though they're mostly arboreal, I've noticed that they like to bury themselves in the substrate sometimes. When I first brought them home, I thought I was missing a skink, and I dug around the soil for him and still couldn't find him, but he was in there and came out about 2 to 3 days later when he was ready. It seems that they'll do this when they're fearful or nervous and will come back out when they're ready. Humidity should try to be maintained around 70%, but letting it drop to 60% and reaching as high as 90% is perfectly okay once in a while. Misting about once or twice a day is usually sufficient in maintaining the humidity, but if you're having some trouble with humidity, you could get something like a fogger as well. I had a fogger for them at one point, but found missing them twice a day was sufficient enough, so I'm going to give the fogger to another animal. An ambient temperature of around 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit should be maintained, with a 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit hotspot. At night, you can have a temperature drop of around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything in my reptile room turns off at night to stimulate a natural day and night cycle and also help to save some money. If it's too cold at night, then I suggest a ceramic heat emitter to add additional ambient heat to the enclosure. It produces heat but no light. I'm not a big fan of red night lights, and I won't get into that here. You can achieve the perfect temperatures with a 2-in-1 mercury vapor bulb. It produces both heat and UVB. They're a little more expensive, but totally worth it. I would recommend something like Exoterra's Solar Glow or Zoomed's Power Sun, as this is a diurnal species, so they'll benefit from you giving them UVB exposure. I would highly recommend it to maintain good health. I have a ReptiSun 5.0 UVB, which is suitable for jungle or forest animals within moderate UVB needs, and depending on the time of year, I'll leave it on for around 10 to 12 hours a day. Once again, at night, everything goes off. I use a radiant heat panel because I already had it and I didn't want to go out and buy a whole new light fixture and bulb, so I hung it inside their enclosure and it's been perfect for me. I'm not recommending you do this. I was just trying something out with what I already had and it ended up working, so I'm keeping it. Using a hygrometer will help you to keep everything in check and let you know the temperature and humidity at glance. But it's still good to go in there every once in a while and check with an infrared thermometer. The enclosure I have my colony of 5 set up in now is a 36 by 18 by 36 Exoterra. They are an arboreal lizard, so height is important. As I've said before, I have done a more in-depth video on the bioactive vivarium I did for these guys, so if you're interested in seeing how I made their bioactive vivarium, then I'll magically make that pop up on the screen for you guys to click. I feel like for a single one, you could probably get away with an 18 by 18 by 24 enclosure. But I would say that's the bare minimum, and I would definitely encourage you guys to give these guys as much space as possible. If you can go bigger, then you and your skinks will both appreciate it. Now, you guys probably do remember what this tank looked like when I first set it up, and I still love how it looks. I think it's still growing and great. The only problem is that peace lily. I didn't anticipate that the skinks were going to slip and slide on the leaves. So the peace lily is actually alive and doing well. It's just they slip and slide on the leaves and then their little nails scratch up the leaves and everything. So you guys might want to look into a more sturdy plant. I actually originally wanted a ficus tree for this tank, but for some reason I just couldn't find one. So at some point I might end up
putting one in there and changing that out. They do great in colonies as they're pretty social, so I feel you need at least a pair to interact with one another to truly appreciate them and get the most of this lizard. Again, as I've said before, we've looked more in depth in this tank before, but I'm just gonna go over it again. They will need some branches, foliage, and other decor to climb on, hide in, explore, and make them feel secure. These are just some branches that I've collected and disinfected myself. I did end up buying a really large piece of cork bark though that I was able to rip in half and also split into some smaller pieces for some of my other enclosures. I love using cork bark as hides, and I find it's actually a lot cheaper to just buy a giant piece of cork bark and rip it into like different smaller pieces and hides for my other reptiles than buying them like individual made hides. You can either do live or fake plants. I've already changed some of the plants in here since I did the last video. I'm always changing up my tanks. And then I took the crouton that was inside my blue beauty snake enclosure, and it wasn't doing well in there, so I put it in here and it's been doing well since. So look, there's even a new shoot that came out. I'm waiting for the leaves to fan out. It's gonna look so nice when it does, because then it's just gonna like cover this whole area here and it's gonna look so pretty. You want them to be able to express their natural behaviors that they would in the wild. They're a very active species, so they're gonna use every branch and climbing opportunity to their advantage. And this video isn't about you. Go away. For substrate, I'd recommend a earthy type one, such as Repti soil or jungle mix or eco earth. Mostly for the fact that they like to seem to dig in the substrate. But these substrates I find are the best for holding humidity and for bioactive and vivarium setups. I covered all three sides of the tank because they don't really understand that there's like a glass barrier there. Blocking out all three sides of the tank and leaving the front open for viewing pleasures is one way that you can make some reptiles feel more secure. I also find it gives them more of a surface to climb onto. And also, as I mentioned before in the last video, my tank background didn't really turn out exactly how I wanted it to. At some point, I might remove them and try to redo this. I was trying something new and it just didn't end up working out, so I was a little disappointed about that. But there's a lot of other distracting things inside the tank that make it look nice, and it doesn't look absolutely horrible, so it's okay. A water bowl, of course, is a good idea, but they seem to mostly drink from the water droplets when you miss them. I just have their water in one of these little cups that I then will put on their ledge back here. I gave them a big water bowl one time at the bottom and they just kind of like pooped in it a bunch, and I never really saw them drink from it too much, so I figured that just like a small little water dish like this was okay, since again I never saw them like sit in it or soak in it or anything. So you can also find these guys on the Solomon Islands where there's little to no standing water. I gave them a hammock because I noticed that they like to hang up top on the radiant heat panel, but they haven't really seemed to want to use it, so I might try to put it somewhere else, or I'm gonna give it to another animal. I want to do a lot more to their tank in the future, and I want to try putting other decor and items in there to enrich them, as they're very smart and interactive, so over time I'll experiment with them and see what tickles their fancy.
The skink's diet makes it an opportunistic predator and eats anything that it can get its jaws on. They'll eat mainly insects of all kinds, snails, and even some small lizards and frogs. They occasionally will also eat select fruits like berries, mango, banana. They'll even eat flowers such as hibiscus, and even some greens are good to add to their diet. It's also been said that in local areas that the skinks will even steal dog food. In captivity, crickets are a great staple, and it's fun to watch them chase the crickets around as they really like the movement, but it's good to switch it up and give them a varied diet.
Got your mouth there full, bud.
You can also offer them any kind of appropriate size worms such as hornworms, silkworms, superworms, waxworms, etc. Roaches if they're legal where you're from. I'm in Canada, so they're not legal. We can only buy them dead here.
Ew. Gross.
They'll eat from tongs and from your hands sometimes if they become more comfortable. Meal replacement powders that are for crested geckos such as Rapashi or Pangea is also great for these guys, especially the ones with insects. Here I got a sample of some bugs and grub and it seems like they like it, so I'll have to buy some soon. They'll learn to trust you over time after they've learned you're the source of food. The way to any reptile's heart is their stomach. I will dust feeders with calcium about once or twice a week, and then I'll dust with other specialty vitamins such as D3 or a multivitamin about twice a month. If you have UVB, then try not to overdo it with vitamin D3. Sexual dimorphism isn't really obvious in this species. A lot of keepers have been able to recognize that males have this yellow-colored scale on the underside of their thigh, as well as a yellow scale on the heels of the rear legs of the males, while the females don't seem to have this. The males sometimes can be a bit bulkier than the females, but this isn't the best way to tell. You want more females than males if you have a colony, because too many males could cause some problems. They're almost impossible to find captive bred, but apparently they can breed fairly easily in captivity and need little encouragement on your part if your setup is correct. I've seen some keepers in private groups have success with hatchlings, and I'm hoping this year I can have some success in breeding them myself as well.
So these guys are a highly active species and they're always on the move. They might be skittish at first, but with a bit of time and work, they will happily interact with you. They'll just come on out and jump out at you. They'll be squirmish if you restrain them, but they seem to like to just happily sit on your head or on your shoulder. Eve will just hang out with me while I'm doing some chores sometimes.
Alright, so we have to go and clean some things, right? You gonna help me clean? Don't think so.
And I don't choose to handle her, she does. They'll usually choose and let you know when they want to be handled or not. Some days she's at the door just begging to come out, and then other days she's just really not feeling it and would prefer me not even to go near her. Well everyone, I think I've gone over everything that I possibly could have, and I hope that it helped to provide more information for those interested in keeping this unique species. Don't forget to check out my other social media to keep in touch and see updates on my pets and more. I mostly use Instagram, by the way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.